What is the simplest thing you could be doing for your thyroid and hormonal health that you're probably not doing? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back, my friends. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for being here and clicking on today's video. Today, I'm actually going to show you an Instagram live that I did with my friend Ryan Mitchell just last week. Now, I love to share things with my YouTube family because I know not all of you guys are on Instagram, so I really do hope that you enjoy this chat. One of the things that we did talk about was thyroid health. And so today's sponsor is going to be Let's Get Checked. This is the at-home thyroid test kit. Now, here's the thing about testing your thyroid, and I just personally experienced this last week at the doctor. I have a history of hypothyroid. Now, I have since fixed that. I have great blood work, and I know that because I check my blood work with this at-home kit with Let's Get Checked as frequently as I would like to. You can use my code YOGI30 to save 30% off of this. But when I asked my doctor to recheck my thyroid, as I do every time I go to the doctor, she only ran a TSH. And I was thinking, I forgot to ask her to run the full panel, even though I thought that was pretty much understood in this day and age, that if you run a thyroid panel, you're going to run T3, T4, and TSH, not just TSH, because if you just run that one number, it's only part of the puzzle. So of course, when I got my lab results back, it was just the TSH number. So of course, I had to use my own at-home kit to check that out to make sure my numbers still looked good. And I also have run the Let's Get Checked test in alignment with my labs at a doctor's office, and the numbers are usually right about the same. So I've tested it for accuracy myself. Now, I'd like to thank them again for sponsoring today's interview. If you want to get your own at-home thyroid test, that's going to be linked down in the show notes for you. Again, my code YOGI30 will get you 30% off of any at-home blood test with Let's Get Checked. I also frequently utilize their vitamin D test, as well as cholesterol and A1C. Those are just great tests to know, great data to have to make sure that you're on the right track with your health. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this interview with my friend Ryan. Please feel free to leave a comment or question below if you have one, and I will talk with you again soon. Have a great day. Bye.
That you can do to optimize your health that you aren't doing, that's free, and that not a lot of people are talking about, and I think deserves a little more attention. We're going to be talking to Carnivore Yogi, a quantum health coach. I'm going to ask her what that type of jargon means. But let's get this show on the ring. We got an exciting 30 minutes ahead of us, boys and girls. Let's see if I accept. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am most magical. I'm glad that we're both sitting outside. I think it's fitting for today's topic.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, it's something I was watching an interview you did on your YouTube channel. Have a wonderful YouTube channel, Carnivore Yogi on YouTube,
Thank you.
with Ryan Carter, who's Live Vitae, and actually my health coach. And you guys talked a lot about light and EMF and all these various things. But I kind of just wanted to start because we're going to be talking about the sun, quantum health, circadian rhythms. And I kind of want to just let you kind of introduce yourself, a little bit of your background, and also how light became a very big part of your journey that you maybe didn't expect would be a part of your journey. And certainly for me too, I relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to start off by saying I thought all the light stuff and the quantum stuff was kind of woo-woo, and I was like, not interested. I'm just going to focus on food. Like that's it. I'm just going to do the food thing. Food's good. And it only got me so far, you know. And last year I was very frustrated because I had gained a lot of weight in 2020. And I really didn't change the way that I was eating. I was still eating meat-based, carnivore. And I just was very frustrated because I'm like, I'm doing all the right things that I know to do with nutrition. And so that's when I started diving into the light rabbit hole, and starting to understand that my metabolism wasn't just controlled by food. The food is just absolutely foundational, and food got me far. Like I'm not going to put down carnivore at all, because it got me to where I am. I always say meat is the gateway drug because it allows you to feel so much better and get so much of your energy back and your vitality back by changing your food to, you know, whole foods, which is for me was meat, you know, primarily strictly for 2 years carnivore. That third year, last year, I kind of played around with some different things and still stayed mostly, you know, just ketogenic, but mostly meat based, but not strict carnivore 2021. But for the first 2 years, carnivore eliminated a lot of issues for me. IBS, eczema, just horrible menstrual cycles, all kinds of things that I just thought were just part of aging and that were just chronic for me. But again, like I said, I was at this stuck point last year and I was like, there has to be something a little bit more here. And so that's when I started understanding how much light influences my metabolism and how much a lot of the habits that I was doing, a lot of things I was doing on a daily basis that most people do that are very, very common, were just draining my body battery. We're just draining my metabolism, my body's ability to burn energy. And that was contributing to the extra weight gain. And then also just kind of not feeling as good as I knew that I could. You know, I felt pretty good, but I knew I could feel better, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's sort of this place that a lot of people will get to after they've kind of like done like what you've done or done what I've done to try and fix more complex health issues, and like going into doing a lot of the dietary changes like carnivore, animal-based, whatever you want to call it. And then you kind of reach this point where you hit a plateau and you're like, what more is out there? Right. And the answer, it could be so obvious, but it's almost so simple and obvious that it's like beyond us. And I think when you get into the weeds like you and I have, you get to a point where like simplicity is like, it's almost too much to handle, if that makes sense.
Right. You're like, no, that's too simple.
It can't be that. It's too easy.
No, that's not it. Yeah. And the thing is, you know, I know you're a health coach and I've been coaching people as well for the last 3 years. And I was just at this place as a coach where I'm like, we can't tinker with your macros anymore. We can't I can't change your fat protein. I can't we're stuck, you know? And I was like that with especially women over 40. I would say that those are the people that come to me the most, because that's me, you know, as women over 40 that are just like, what the hell? Like, I'm so frustrated. And I'm like, you know, your nutrition's on point. It really is. And so, you know, it was for me selfishly that I learned about all these things, but then for all these clients and people I had coming to me, the really cool thing is I have a group of women that have been with me. I have a private membership group, and these group of women have been with me through this whole light transformation. So we've all been learning together. We've all been doing this together, and all of them have had amazing transformations too. Like, I am so proud of my ladies in that group that they didn't just say you're crazy, you know, like I had said. Dr. Rimka was the first one that told me I needed to go see sunrise. And that was when I started carnivore in 2019, because Dr. Rimka was the one that told me to start carnivore. And I was like, you're crazy. But what I'm doing is not working. So, okay. But Dr. Rimka, she had studied a lot of Jack Kruse's stuff. And she's like, look, you know, you're going to do carnivore. Yes. But along with carnivore, I want you to start looking at the sun every morning, seeing sunrise. And I was just like, that's stupid. I'm just going to do the food.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm with you. And it's so interesting because like you mentioned earlier, it's like there are so many of these daily habits that we form just because it's normal these days. Like waking up, looking at your phone, watching TV late at night, looking at your phone when you get home late at night. And all these things, working on screens all day, being inside. I think something like 86% of us spend most of our time inside. And so I kind of just want to start by like, let's start with the sunrise thing. What is, and I'll use the word circadian rhythms. What is the importance of having a good circadian rhythm? How can we start trying to achieve that? And like you mentioned, metabolism. I think one of the most profound things I ever learned was that metabolism starts by the light that enters in your eye.
Right.
It starts here.
SCN. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's kind of start with that.
Yeah, so I just actually created it's 50% off right now, a course
Awesome.
that's called a 3-day circadian kickstart that's linked in my bio.
Sweet.
Where I just really dive into how to do this stuff, sunrise, sunset, and why, and all these hormones, and like break it down in a way that's really, really understandable for people. But the simple thing that you need to know is that when we wake up, our body should still be making some melatonin, right? When we are light is what tells our body that we need to start producing cortisol, right? The sunrise is what tells us, all right, let's just gradually turn cortisol on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the intensity of that light, the amount of kelvins that is coming from the sunrise is about, sorry, we got planes overhead.
Oh, okay.
But it's about 1600 kelvins is what sunrise is, right? I think it's 1600.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells our body, let's turn off melatonin, gradually turn on cortisol. That's a signal, right? That intensity. The intensity of our phone, which is what I was doing every day,
Mm-hmm.
what most people are doing every day, waking up, looking straight at that phone, is about 5,700 to 6,000 kelvins, right? So if light is, which it is, and I have tons and tons of studies to back this up. I have a resource guide linked in my bio that you can download, and it's 4 pages of studies that back up all of this stuff. So I'm not just like saying all this stuff because I did believe it was woo-woo BS.
Oh, I'm the same. Totally believe it. Yeah.
I'm like, I need to see the proof of this. So I have collected that proof. But when we see the sunrise, again, we're gradually turning on cortisol. When we look at our phones, it's like we're telling our body it's noon. Yeah. So our body is like, shit, like I got to make all this cortisol. So
right
that's
now.
where hormonal dysregulation starts, right? If you're making enough cortisol for noon, when you're first waking up, you're beginning that process of hormonal dysregulation. And then when we see UVA light, which if you download, and there's a link to this app in my resource guide in my bio, it's called the Circadian Life app.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It will tell you what time UVA light starts, because UVA is that next very important signal. It tells your body, okay, we need to start making pregnenolone, thyroid hormone, serotonin, dopamine, all these neurotransmitters. That's how sunrise and being outside, I have so many people now that are addicted to it because it's a natural way for us to make those neurotransmitters, right? Yeah. It's how nature intended for us to make those neurotransmitters. And I've had people that have had, and it's not a cure-all. Sometimes we have to do a lot of other things, but I have people that have struggled with thyroid issues. All they start doing is sunrise and UVA light, and their thyroid gets better, right? It's amazing, right? Because all of a sudden they're not waking up and having this artificial light in their face. They're getting what nature intended in their face. So it's just a matter of kind of changing those habits up. And there's ways to work around it if you work. Because I get like, oh, I have to work 9 to 5, or I have to drive my kids to school. I have to work in an office. I have to be there early. That's why I did that 3-day circadian kickstart course, because I did a lot of troubleshooting for people who I understand. Like, not everyone has a luxury like I do of being at home when the sun is up and coming out, and being able to go outside all the time. So there are ways to troubleshoot this. You don't need to be outside for hours a day. I mean, if you can, sweet, right? Yeah. Great.
then you end up as tan as I am.
Right, I know, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if you can't do that, you can still get all these benefits, and you can still get the benefits if it's raining, if it's cloudy, if it's, you know, overcast, if you live in the UK, if you live in Seattle, like, yeah, you can still do these things. You just have to be a little more strategic about it.
Totally agree. It's actually funny you mentioned thyroid, because I was somebody that was dealing with, I have an eating disorder background. So like that just wreaks havoc on every bodily system you could imagine. And so one of the things that I never addressed in my recovery, and I was wondering why I was like fatigued all the time after I had like gained weight and was at like a set point, and my doctors basically started ignoring me at that point because I didn't look sick, but I felt like basically no better than when I was 88 pounds. And I discovered 2 years after that like all my hormones were tanked, like every single one of them. And I was like, I wasn't on SAD. I was probably on like what you would consider like the healthier version of like a standard American diet. Like I was avoiding a lot of processed foods, but I was still eating a lot of like, I wasn't like eating organic or all that stuff. And I was still like drinking tons of diet soda and like all these other things. But all my hormones were tanked. And I was actually I was hypothyroid, and I was actually put on like a T3 or like a synthetic T3 or something, T4,
yeah.
something like that. And after I started getting into this stuff and really altering my diet, going more animal based, and starting to focus on like circadian health over the last year, I've actually had to go off meds because my thyroid med was making me hyperthyroid.
Yeah, you were
my thyroid was
heart palpitations.
Yep.
Yep.
That was my first signal.
I've heard
and
that
so,
a lot.
But it's, I think, one of the most, I mean, people talk about seasonal depressive disorder every year.
Yep.
And it tends to be when we start going inside more in the fall, in the winter, we're inside more and more. And I mean, I think one of the simplest benefits of going outside at all is just, is those neurotransmitters and like dopamine and just, you just feel better. And like you said, you kind of begin to crave the sunlight.
Yes, you do.
And your body wants it. Like, I know for me, if I don't get it in the morning, my body's just like yearning for it like immediately when I get up. And and like you said, like it doesn't need to be this very difficult. I think we often make things a little more difficult than we do. And I believe me, I understand people that have to work a 9 to 5. I mean, I did that for a long, long time.
Yep.
Well, not a long, long time. I'm relatively young, but like most of my early 20s, like working service jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like, it's about taking moments throughout the day to like get light breaks.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
As often as you can. Just go outside for like 5-10 minutes.
Yep.
And like expose your actual eyes to the sun. I have to, like, I wear glasses, but that blocks wavelengths so you need to let the full wavelength into your eye. And so there are other things you can do. I mean, I know you're a huge fan of using EMR Tech's red light. I am too. They're awesome. I do that every morning for like a couple minutes and every evening. But you can also get, that type of wavelength from the sunset, sunrise. So that's like the benefit of seeing the natural light. But I was sort of curious too. Let's maybe get into just a little bit of explanation of, without giving it all away, I suppose, the importance of light for metabolism and how that helped you kind of lose that weight that you weren't knowing why it was coming on. And a lot of that, I'm sure, was due to, imbalance in hormones coming from artificial light during the day, all day, and just not having exposure to the natural UV and UVB and stuff like that.
Right.
I think some of the mechanism would be interesting to talk about.
Well, one of the things I didn't realize about myself is that even though I had been carnivore for quite some time, I was leptin resistant. I had leptin. And it would swing both ways. Like if I did too much fasting, I would be, because it's the same. Like if your leptin's too low, your body acts the same way as though it's too high. So I would kind of vacillate because I would fast and then I would like tank out my leptin, and then I just never, and then I would like, have the opposite problem where my leptin would be too high. And you can do that. And I've worked with so many people who are leptin resistant, even though they're carnivore or keto, they're not eating carbohydrates, because yes, eating sugar, processed foods is going to screw up your leptin for sure. But I've met tons of people who haven't been eating those foods who still have leptin resistance. So with leptin, right, it's a circadian hormone, and leptin docks to the hypothalamus at night when we sleep, usually around midnight or so. It's a little different for everyone, but leptin is docking to the hypothalamus at night while we sleep, saying, this is how much energy we have on the body. So this is what your appetite needs to be tomorrow to control your appetite, right? So even though I wasn't vastly overeating, I was eating enough so that I was still overweight, right? I was gaining weight. I was never going outside, right? So I wasn't as active. But I had the leptin issue. And so I was like trying to lose weight, but I was like, I'm freaking hungry. Like, why am I hungry? I don't understand. And I need to, I wanted to lose the weight. So understanding that leptin is a circadian hormone, and number one, setting my circadian rhythm with the sun every morning, and then eating a protein and fat breakfast with adequate protein every morning within 30 minutes of sunrise, right? Changing it up. So no, I wasn't really snacking before, but that's something that a lot of people do. So no snacking, and then not eating 4 hours before bed, which I think is a trap that a lot of us fall into with carnivore and keto, because we're like, let's fast all day till 1 o'clock. And then we eat this big meal at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, you know, like later at night. And then the body is still busy digesting that food, especially meat. Like it does take a little bit longer to digest meat. If you have a big steak at like 8 o'clock at night, you could be blocking that leptin docking to the hypothalamus by doing that. So I had to change that up, right? So that's one way. Melatonin, also, we need that at night. So if you're looking at your phone constantly, right, especially after sunset, you've got that artificial light, you've got the brightness of noon, you're looking at that, you're telling your body it's noon, that's making cortisol. And cortisol opposes melatonin, right? So that's another problem, that people aren't getting that leptin docking to the hypothalamus. They're not getting repair at night. Melatonin is a master antioxidant. And so, you know, everyone's like, oh, autophagy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But if you don't make enough melatonin at night, all that hard work you're putting in, doing all the fasting, is not going to work as effectively. You're going to be doing all this work and it's going to be more like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And that's, again, how, you know, another example. I mean, there's just like tons
Oh,
of
there's so many. Yeah.
But those are some simple ones, like some low hanging fruit, like, and motivation for you to not have the artificial light on at night, so your body can make that melatonin, not be eating late at night. So those are some real simple things people can do to start to, if they're stuck with losing weight, you know, and how circadian rhythms affect that.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to leptin resistance because that's actually something that happens, interestingly enough, during if you go through like a major restriction period for a long period of time.
Yes.
And so that was something that I never realized was a problem of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell that it was improving because like I don't get hunger urges, like where I'm constantly hungry throughout the day. But I need to remember, like for me, like you mentioned earlier, like kind of eating breakfast of like having a good protein amount and a good fat amount in the morning within the first like bit of waking up is really important for me, because otherwise it does throw off those other things because I'm still in a sort of healing phase. And this goes back to like, I think a lot of us, I mean, a lot of times we hear things from the experts or people we follow, and we sort of forget that, hey, these people, I mean, we're obsessed with knowing what our idols are doing, right? And we want to do what they do, right?
Copy what they're doing.
But we need to remember that they're probably in a place of better overall metabolic health and all these things because they've been doing it for a while, because they've had to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so I think we forget that we need to be like, okay, what do I need to apply to myself in this current situation? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of us are coming from a place of not getting any sun exposure or very, very limited.
Right.
And so we need to start where we can start and really focus on like what can apply to us. And I think something that's really easy, and I tell people this, I've been telling my girlfriend for months, is just like, I'm getting everybody like for their birthdays, blue blocking glasses.
Yeah.
Like for the evening.
So important. Yep.
And it's pretty much, I actually have, do I have them with me? I do, because I was going inside. I have the Summer Glow kind of yellow ones for indoor during the day ones. Yep. And I work on the computer all the time. So I use those like when I'm inside.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are just simple things to do like at night. If like, believe me, I know how hard it is to put down your phone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is hard. But once you get out of it and once it becomes like a rhythm for you to put it down, I've found that once you get into that rhythm, it's actually really easy to stay off it. And it's actually hard to go back on it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think an easy way to sort of mitigate those things is to like get blue blocking glasses. Try to, if you're gonna, I mean, if like for me, I try to look at screens primarily when I'm outside during the day, because the natural light kind of buffers some of this coming at me. And then also you can set dimmers on your phone. So that like at night at like 5 or 5:30, mine goes to like a red sort of tint. You can get apps like Iris for your computer.
Iris is what I use on my computer. Yeah.
Iris is a great one. It's like $10.
Yep.
That one's a really good one to just limit the flicker that's coming into your eyes.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think all of these activities, I think this stuff is actually the hardest for people to do, because it's, I don't want to say that it's so easy that it's difficult, but it's kind of like I've just found working with certain clients that, or even myself actually, that sometimes the easiest things to do or easiest things to apply in theory are actually the most difficult to make myself do.
Yeah, definitely.
How do we get over that hump? Like
I feel like
how is
having support is really important. And then like really learning and understanding more about the science behind this stuff.
Yeah, you gotta give a why.
Kind of once you understand, I mean, that's why I did the 3-day circadian kickstart course, because I wanted people to actually understand the science behind all of this and talk about the timing of different hormones being released and like, you know, why they would want to start to apply these things. And again, how to troubleshoot if you work in an office, so you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to be outside all day. You don't have to be outside all day. But I think understanding the why behind it is very important. Education is very, very important when we're trying to change. Like when, you know, when we probably, I don't know if you're anything like me, but when I first started Carnivore and doing like a meat-based diet, I was like every podcast, every YouTube, everything I could listen to all the time to just learn. I still enjoy learning about that stuff, but now I feel like I've learned a good amount about the food stuff, and now I want to learn about quantum health. And like every time I'm listening to a podcast or any course that I'm taking or certification that I'm taking is more geared towards quantum health, because the nutrition does tie in to that, right? There is a nutrition piece in that. So it's not like I've just discarded nutrition and don't think it's important. I do. However, yeah, I think that just continuing to have the education piece around all this stuff is what's going to keep people motivated to doing it, and then just getting started and sometimes joining a group. Like I've got my private membership group that, you know, we all kind of stay accountable to each other and post in there every day, and people can talk through different issues that they're having. I think that kind of thing is important too, having community.
Yeah, community is a really big one. I mean, that's kind of actually what got me into coaching in the first place for myself, was because I wish I had someone that knew what I know now to help me early on. Especially, I think, because I don't work primarily with eating disorder clients, but I do have them just because they relate to my story and they kind of reach out. And I wish I had someone tell me 5 years ago when I was like in the depths of it, about all of this stuff, because it would have really helped me get out of it, as opposed to trying to go through the standard of care, which is just so broken. And they kind of belittle it down to just, oh, it's just your negative thoughts. And I'm like, well, why am I having the negative thoughts in the first place? I'm having all these really bad hormonal and like neuro, like these, I'm just having like really bad connections in my brain. Like it's not communicating correctly.
Right.
And no one ever gets to why that is. They just say, oh, you're broken, so here's how we're going to cope with it.
Right.
And so I want to help people realize that, like, hey, you can actually get past that. You can rewire your brain. Absolutely. And create these new habits for yourself that are just like game changing. I just like I just wake up and I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I could actually be happy like for a whole 24-hour period.
Yeah, no,
you know
I
mean?
get it. I feel the same way. I mean, I struggled with depression, anxiety, years and years of medications, because that was what I was told is like, you're broken, so this is a pill that can help that. And the pills were kind of like a patch for a while, and then they would eventually stop being effective. And so I wanted something that was sustainable. I wanted to know like how can I live life and not feel this way all the time? And getting the nutrition piece down is huge. Like that's foundational. But then kind of once you add on the light piece, the circadian rhythms, it's like, oh my gosh, like I wish I had been doing this all along. So it's like putting all the stuff that you're doing with nutrition kind of on steroids to add in the light piece. It really does.
And you have so many resources. I'll just point people to your page and to your YouTube channel. You have so many resources and so many interesting interviews with people that know far more than I do. But I think the beauty of it is just, it's something that everyone can do in almost any sort of living situation or job situation. You just kind of got to alter it, and that's where working with a coach is beneficial. They can help you do that. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it's free, and at the end of the day, it just, once you learn about it, it makes so much sense. I mean, sun is based, I mean, the fact that we have the sun is like the reason that all of us exist in the first place, pretty much.
We evolved under the sun. Absolutely. I mean, that's how it grew our food. That's how we all got here. So to discard that and say it's woo-woo, it's stupid, is kind of short-sighted, right? Which
Exactly.
I'm guilty of. I did that, you know, and
Oh yeah.
in the winter, this is the first winter that I really didn't have any seasonal depression
Oh yeah,
because
me too.
I adjusted to my latitude. I cold
Hmm.
plunged in the winter. I went outside. I did like all the things that you're supposed to do quantum wise, and I didn't get that depression like I usually do during the winter. So I think like understanding the seasons, understanding how we're on a 24-hour rhythm and we're on a seasonal rhythm as well,
Hmm.
how that relates to your health is just, you know, it's very, very important. It's foundational.
And I'll kind of end it with this because I mean, look at your pets. If you have a dog, you have a cat, or
Mm.
if you notice animals in nature, they are. I mean, and the thing is, like they teach this when if you take a zoology class or you're in school or whatever. Or if you're watching Animal Planet, you kind of notice that every animal is on
Oh
a
yeah.
circadian rhythm, like throughout the day, like, and it's like, why would we be different?
Right.
And I think it's just this like disconnect. I mean, we're the only like animal on the planet that has like a separation from nature,
Right.
really. And so like it's just kind of reconnecting with that and all that stuff. I'm getting a little deep, but
No.
I just want to thank you for coming on. I'd love to have you back on to talk about
Yeah,
things like
sure.
EMF. I think would be a
Oh yeah,
fantastic topic,
definitely.
and
That's a big
something
topic.
and that's one that I think kind of slides under the radar a lot and can give people problems when they're troubleshooting that
Hmm.
they're just not making that extra leap that they could
Hmm.
be, and it's this little thing, this little tweak they got
Oh
to
yeah,
make.
it's huge, huge,
Big
huge.
one.
That's another one where people are like, "Oh, I don't want to," and I was like that. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to
Oh, I
deal
was
with it.
too.
But then when I actually started applying some of these things, like turning off Wi-Fi at night
Hmm.
and putting my phone on airplane mode, and just all these little tweaks, that's when I saw my health like go elevate even more.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a ton of science behind it. I know my friend Carrie just jumped on
Oh, yeah.
here. She is always posting stuff in her stories and posts that I'm like, this girl knows it all when it comes to like EMF and the science and like the studies. And I mean,
That's cool.
she doesn't say anything without backing it up. And that's what I respect about so many people in the quantum community.
Hmm.
They're not just saying stuff to say it and trigger people. There's legitimate data to back up everything that they're saying. And then when
Yeah.
you experience it yourself, your health as a whole, you're like, okay, I mean, this all makes perfect sense, right?
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's like the more you know, the better you understand things, and the more the dots kind of connect, and everything just kind of falls into place. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
But
Absolutely.
please tell people where they can find you, where they can download your new course you came out with, because that sounds extremely helpful, and all that good jazz.
Yeah, just my page, carnivore.yogi. And then if you go to my bio, there's all my webinars, courses, all that stuff. The 3-day circadian kickstart, it's 50% off right now. I'm letting it be 50% off for the first 300 people that sign up.
Cool.
So that is a really, really good deal. And that's also in my bio. And I'm doing a 21-day leptin reset.
Awesome.
In a few weeks, that'll be like a guided coaching experience to help people through this whole leptin reset, because knowing the things, knowing the science, knowing what you're supposed to do is one thing, but then actually
Applying
getting
it.
someone to walk you through it and have support, I think is a whole other level. So
Well, I'll be there for that. I'll see you
yeah,
on that one.
awesome.
But have a great rest of your day.
You
Everybody go
too.
check her out, and we'll talk again. EMF, everybody. It's going to be an exciting
Yeah.
topic.